In 2022, Klarna's $45 billion empire was collapsing fast. Then its CEO claimed AI had replaced 700 workers and would save them $40 million, boasting he was making humans obsolete. But just months before Klarna's IPO, that entire story exploded. If AI really fixed everything, why did the company end up begging those same workers back and forcing software engineers onto customer service phones? The real answer starts long before the headlines. By the summer of 2021, Klarna's future looked unstoppable. The Swedish fintech giant had soared to $45.6 billion in valuation, making it the highest valued private tech company in Europe. But the optimism did not last. Within a single year, Klarna's value crashed by 85%, plummeting to just $6.7 billion by July 2022. The crash wiped out tens of billions in paper wealth and sent shockwaves through the company's Stockholm headquarters. Facing a brutal downturn in the buy now, pay later market, Klarna responded with a sweeping round of layoffs. In May 2022, 700 employees, about 10% of the workforce, lost their jobs overnight. The company blamed the cuts on market conditions, but inside Klarna, the mood was darker. Employees described a sense of panic as budgets tightened, projects were shelved, and hiring froze across departments. For CEO Sebastian Siemiatkowski, the pressure was personal. Years of rapid expansion had left the company exposed, and investors wanted answers. Klarna's growth story was collapsing in real time. Desperate for a way forward, Siemiatkowski began searching for a new narrative. In March 2023, he approached OpenAI's Sam Altman with a bold proposition. Klarna would become OpenAI's favorite guinea pig. The message was clear. Klarna would bet its future on artificial intelligence, not just as a tool for efficiency, but as a lifeline to restore confidence. The company's leadership saw AI as more than a technical upgrade. It was a way to signal to investors and the public that Klarna could still lead the next wave of fintech innovation. Inside the company, the shift felt abrupt. Teams that once managed customer service and back-office operations found themselves under review. Some roles disappeared, others were put on hold. The cost-cutting was relentless, but the promise of AI offered hope, at least on paper. For Siemiatkowski, the gamble was clear. If Klarna could prove that machines could do the work of hundreds of humans, the company might regain its lost momentum. The stakes could not have been higher. February 2024 brought a new kind of headline for Klarna. The company issued a press release that read like a victory lap. Their new AI assistant had handled 2.3 million customer conversations in its very first month. The numbers were staggering. Klarna claimed the chatbot was doing the work of 700 full-time agents, and the company projected a $40 million profit boost for the year. Overnight, Klarna became the poster child for Silicon Valley's AI revolution. Major business outlets raced to interview CEO Sebastian Siemiatkowski, who did not hold back. On Bloomberg, he declared, "AI can already do all of the jobs that we, as humans, do." The media blitz was relentless. Articles, podcasts, and investor calls all echoed the same message. Klarna had cracked the code. AI was not just a support tool, it was now the engine of the entire company. Siemiatkowski told the Financial Times, "Not only can we do more with less, but we can do much more with less." He painted a future where the workforce would shrink from 3,800 to just 2,000 people, with the AI assistant picking up the slack. Each new interview seemed to raise the stakes higher. Then came the Deepfake Stunt. For Klarna's third quarter 2024 earnings presentation, the CEO did not appear in person. Instead, an AI-generated video version of Siemiatkowski read out the results. The move was meant to show how far the company could push automation. Even the company leader could be replaced, at least for an afternoon. The message was unmistakable. If Klarna's leader could trust AI with his own voice and image, why should anyone doubt it could handle customer service? Investors and tech analysts took notice. Klarna's story was splashed across conference stages and LinkedIn feeds as proof that the age of AI-driven business had arrived. The company's workforce kept shrinking, dropping from 5,500 to 3,500 through a mix of hiring freezes and attrition. Every talking point, every press appearance hammered home the same idea. Klarna's AI was not just good enough, it was faster and cheaper than any human team. The bravado was impossible to ignore. Inside Klarna's customer service system, the reality of the AI revolution looked nothing like the press releases. Independent tech writer Gergely Orosz put the chatbot to the test, expecting cutting-edge automation. Instead, he found a system that acted more like a digital gatekeeper than a problem solver. Routine questions about payment plans or order status produced canned answers pulled straight from the help center. Any issue with a hint of complexity, such as fraud alerts, locked accounts, or missed payments, triggered a loop of rigid responses and dead ends. Customers described the experience as robotic and exhausting. When the AI failed to help, it would finally pass the case to a human, but only after forcing users to repeat their stories from scratch. Reports of frustration poured in across social media and review sites. Many customers said they felt invisible, trapped in endless cycles of scripted messages. Complaints ranged from botched refunds to mishandled disputes, with some users locked out of their accounts for days. By early 2025, the volume of negative feedback had become impossible to ignore. The Better Business Bureau received a steady stream of grievances about Klarna's unresponsive support. While exact numbers remained unverified, the trend was clear. Trust in Klarna's service was eroding. Internally, the company's own metrics told a similar story. Customer satisfaction scores, once a point of pride, began to slip. Ratings on public platforms like Glassdoor dropped from 3.8 in 2022 to 3.0 by mid-2025, reflecting growing discontent not just from customers but from employees forced to defend the AI's shortcomings. Even as the chatbot handled millions of conversations, it failed to deliver on the promise of true empathy or nuanced problem-solving. For customers facing urgent financial problems or needing reassurance, the absence of a human touch became a breaking point. The cracks in the system widened as the months went on. Routine issues might be resolved in minutes, but anything that fell outside the AI's narrow script could spiral into a multi-day ordeal. Some customers resorted to posting public pleas for help just to get a response. Klarna's leadership had staked the company's reputation on the idea that AI could match or exceed human service. But the evidence mounting from independent tests, complaint boards, and user stories told a different story, one of a company that had traded away loyalty and trust for speed and cost savings. The promise of seamless AI support had given way to a new kind of frustration, one that no press release could hide. In May 2025, the confident AI narrative at Klarna collapsed in public view. CEO Sebastian Siemiatkowski, who just months earlier had declared, "AI can already do all of the jobs that we, as humans, do," now faced the cameras with a different message. In a Bloomberg interview, he admitted, "As cost unfortunately seems to have been a too predominant evaluation factor when organizing this, what you end up having is lower quality." The words landed with the kind of bluntness rarely heard from a tech founder. The company that had spent a year boasting about its AI achievements was now scrambling to explain why it was hiring humans again. Inside Klarna, the emergency response was swift and chaotic. Job postings for customer service roles popped up across Europe and the United States. The company launched a pilot program for remote human agents, including students and workers in rural areas, to fill the gaps left by the AI system. But the problems ran deeper than unfilled seats. According to a September 2025 Business Insider report, Klarna began reassigning employees from departments that had nothing to do with customer support. Software engineers, marketers, even lawyers, people whose jobs had been declared no longer a priority, were placed into a so-called talent pool. From there, they were shifted onto the front lines, answering phones and handling customer complaints. For many, the reversal was both humiliating and surreal. Engineers who had spent months building and refining the very AI tools meant to automate away customer service now found themselves fielding calls from frustrated users. Marketers who once crafted global campaigns were walking customers through payment disputes. Legal staff hired to negotiate contracts and manage compliance were explaining return policies to angry shoppers. The company called it a dual-track approach, blending AI efficiency with human empathy. But the reality inside the call centers was far less polished. Employees described the redeployment as a scramble, an admission that the AI-first model had failed to deliver on its grand promises. Siemiatkowski tried to frame the pivot as a bold investment in quality. "Really investing in the quality of the human support is the way of the future for us," he told reporters. But the optics were impossible to spin. The company that had once bragged about replacing 700 people with a chatbot was now, in effect, begging its own staff to fill the void. The reversal was not just a technical correction, it was a public climb down, played out in real time, as the world watched the poster child for AI disruption scramble to put humans back at the center of its business. Klarna's transformation wasn't just about headlines, it showed up in the numbers. At the end of 2022, the company employed 5,527 people. By December 2023, that figure had dropped to 3,422. The cuts did not stop there. As 2025 approached, Klarna aimed to shrink its workforce even further, with targets hovering around 2,000 employees. This meant the company was on track to lose nearly 2/3 of its staff in just 3 years. But the story wasn't only about headcount. The makeup of Klarna's workforce shifted too. The share of tech-focused roles doubled, rising from 26% in 2022 to 52% by early 2025. Fewer people, but a higher concentration of engineers and specialists, each one costing more to keep on the payroll. While exact pay figures remained private, analysts noted that average compensation rose as Klarna leaned on a smaller, more technical team. Efficiency metrics became the company's new badge of honor. With fewer employees, Klarna managed to grow revenue by 38% year over year in its United States business. The result, more dollars generated per worker, was a statistic that looked impressive on investor slides. But behind the glossy numbers, the company's ability to deliver quality service was under mounting pressure. The math told one story, but the experience of customers and employees told another. Klarna's public offering landed on September 10, 2025, with all eyes on whether the AI transformation would convince Wall Street. Shares opened at $40, giving the company a market cap of roughly $17 billion, less than half its peak from just 4 years earlier. The initial pop was short-lived. By the end of the first trading day, the stock closed at $45.82, but within weeks, the optimism faded. News broke that Klarna faced a wave of securities class action lawsuits. Investors accused the company of overstating the impact and reliability of its AI overhaul in the run-up to the initial public offering. The next blow came in November, when Klarna disclosed a 39% spike in credit loss provisions. The stock dropped 9.3% in a single day. Analysts began to question whether the AI narrative had been crafted for public markets rather than operational reality. Regulators took notice, launching early probes into Klarna's risk disclosures and customer satisfaction metrics. The headline-grabbing claims that AI had driven efficiency now looked like a liability, not an asset. For investors and industry watchers, Klarna's initial public offering became a cautionary tale. Proof that hype cycles can backfire the moment the numbers hit the open market. Across the tech and business world, Klarna's reversal sent ripples far beyond Stockholm. Forrester research in 2025 found that more than half of employers who laid off workers for AI, 55%, now regret those decisions. The same pattern showed up at some of the world's biggest companies. IBM's CEO once promised to replace 8,000 jobs with artificial intelligence. 2 years later, the actual number was only a few hundred, mostly in human resources. The rest of the roles quietly stayed human. Fast food giant McDonald's tried to automate drive-thrus with AI, only to pull the plug after 3 years of mishaps. Orders for hundreds of chicken McNuggets, garbled requests, and frustrated customers forced the company back to human cashiers. Meanwhile, MIT Media Lab found that 95% of generative AI pilot projects in business never made it past the testing phase. Gartner projected that by 2027, over 40% of agentic AI initiatives will be canceled before they deliver value. Economists and analysts have begun to warn that AI layoffs are often a cover for old-fashioned cost-cutting. Oxford's Fabian Stephanie calls out the scapegoating of technology. MIT's David Otter points to the risk of losing vital expertise. The lesson is clear. Klarna is not an outlier. The AI hype cycle has left a trail of regrets and a growing realization that some jobs and the people who do them are harder to replace than any algorithm. Today, even as companies race to automate, Klarna's reversal exposes a hard truth. Efficiency isn't empathy, and AI alone can't restore lost trust. Forrester now estimates that over half of layoffs driven by AI will be quietly undone. The real danger isn't technology, it's believing hype over human need. As this experiment ripples through the industry, one question remains. Who gets to decide what progress really means? Drop your thoughts below.